The playoffs come to a signifying close, where tonight one driver will hold the glory once the checkered flag is waved from the Peach State. Live from the Atlanta Motor Speedway, we welcome you to coverage of the final race in the championship event in the 2021 CRL Cup Series, as we bring it to you live for one final time right here on the KBueno Racing Network. So happy to have you for our final race of CRL Cup Series action. It's been a grueling season ever since we started, and now we finally get to conclude a championship holder and make somebody a champion at the end of 100 laps here from the Atlanta Motor Speedway. One thing though that you'll notice that'll be way different from any other broadcasts on KBRN is that you get to see the faces behind the operation. My name is Kenneth Bueno, joined alongside by Francisco Bacallao. And Francisco, this has been a building up season. I think for any championship event in any series, there's no race that compares quite like it. You know, you have the entire season, you start all the way at the beginning race, and then you go all the way to the finale, you find out which ones survive, which ones stay resilient, and now we've got those four resilient and tough drivers that are ready to fight for that championship here.
Thanks for having me on here, Kenneth, and this is what the season's all about. It's one more time to try and battle for a championship. We have four drivers, each deserving of being in this position, as they've been the most consistent. They've gotten the wins, and they've put themselves in position to try and get all the glory. And it's at no slouch of a racetrack. We're going to be at Atlanta, known as Hotlanta, and with the temperatures I'm looking at, it's going to be very hot and slick out there this afternoon, so they got their work cut out for them, and I'm just interested in seeing which one of them is going to come out on top. We've seen Eric Heater dominate the season. He's won 6 races, including the last 2. So could he go 3 in a row and close out the season with 7 wins and 3 straight to take home the championship? Or will somebody else steal the championship on a late race restart or just do out strategy Eric Heater? We will never know, but we got a couple more minutes to continue discussing before it goes green.
Abrasive and slick are two distinct words that really carry the characteristics of this Atlanta Motor Speedway, and we'll get a better look as to where we are here in the virtual world as we'll take a look at our KBRN Track Map with images courtesy of Google Earth. Slip down to Hampton, Georgia. There you'll find the Atlanta Motor Speedway. It's all the way back in 1960, or at least opened back in 1960, broke ground in 1958. Track length of about 1.5 miles, 2.4 kilometers, 24 degrees of banking in either corner, with 5 degrees on the straightaway, a quad oval, sort of what we usually see at tracks like Charlotte, and also tracks like the Texas Motor Speedway shares some of those similar characteristics. Of course, 4 turns here from Atlanta, but they are very, very tough to navigate, Francisco. And we had already seen a couple of tracks that I think beat up the cars. And for the championship drivers, we've seen how well they've handled it, whether you dip to the Dover International Speedway, whether you go to a lot of the others that we've seen. These drivers have seen it all, whether it be road courses, whether it be short tracks, whether it be these intermediates, or whether it's the super speedways. And now it's all about what's going to happen at the end of 100 laps. When you go to a track like Atlanta, especially for the finale, what do you have to keep in mind if you're any of these drivers? Do you have to keep in some sort of a conservative approach? What's going to be in the mind of those drivers in order to succeed and carry a title at the end here?
There's really no wrong approach when it comes to this race, given the fact that it is this one race that decides the championship. You can do any approach, and if it all works out in your favor, then you all end up in the same sort of position by the end of the race, and it's just a straight-out shootout from there. You can go conservative early, try and preserve your car, your tires, and just keep yourself relaxed until the latter portion of the race, and then try and make a late attack. Or you can go aggressive, try and go up in the front, lead laps, and battle non-playoff drivers for those positions. And that's going to be one of the things that we're going to talk about today, the non-playoff drivers. We can get to that in a second. But you can go with that approach and try and lead laps, stay up front, keep the track position, which could help you out later in the race.
And the championship 4 drivers, we've yet to mention them, but they are all here tonight, and they are as follows. Eric Heater with the most wins in this 2021 CRL Cup Series season. He leads the playoff standings, followed by Luke Lofaro, joins the championship 4 with a couple of wins of his own. Luke Peters and Matthew Oliveira end up pointing their way in to the CRL Cup Series playoffs and this title for contention group. So all 4 of them will be running for the title here tonight, so keep an eye on all of them. They'll have the playoff banners as we move forward. But nonetheless, you see cars on the grid right behind the iRacing official pace car, and that means it is our time to get to your starting grid, see exactly where every driver and your favorite driver will be starting here tonight in the final race of the CRL Cup Series season. On pole will be the most dominant playoff driver all season long, Eric Heater, going to start his championship hunt from the front alongside fellow playoff contender Matthew Oliveira in the 57, will be first and second to lead us to the green flag.
The highest of the non-playoff drivers is the number 37 of Glenn Bundren Jr. We've seen him race a couple of races here and be in contention. He's going to try and capture a win and play spoiler alongside Harrison Chandler, who's relatively new to the series. He's running before, actually, but we're going to see him once again here for a championship battle.
Michael Rosero in the 23 will start in the inside at row number 3 to cap off the top 5, and playoff driver Luke Lafaro will be alongside him to the outside in row number 3 in the 6th spot.
Looking back to the 4th row, Luke Peters, a championship contender. He's going to start off from that 7th position, so he's favorably in the upper side of the field, which is good for his race. And then you have alongside him Benjamin White, who runs the Super Speedway Series, once again making a return in the final race here, hoping to end the season strong.
Back to row number 5, to the top 10, you'll find Bryn George and Keelan Belsha, 2 non-playoff drivers that we've seen throughout this season looking for a first win. A roll to the rest of the field. Oliver Golding, Talon Drake will be up to the top 12, and Josh Redden will be the last driver to take time in this field. He will be in the 13th running position. A little bit of weather before we get to the green flag here at Atlanta Motor Speedway. Track temp way above probably the 100s, or at least close to it here at Hot Atlanta, but air temp running around 78 degrees, winds barely to the north at about 2 miles per hour. No humidity, no fog. It is a beautiful, partly cloudy afternoon in sim, so obviously we'll give some of the best resources in the skies for the drivers standing out on the racetrack. So we'll have the pace car come off of turn 4. Eric Heater and Matthew Oliveira, 2 championship 4 contenders. Toyota Camry, Chevrolet Camaro, ready to lead us to the green flag in the final race of the CRL Cup Series Season 3. Pace cars off. We're underway for the championship event.
Bundren with a good enough start, he's able to get into that 2nd place position and try to fend off those behind him. As you see in the field, everybody's kind of around. We have a big wreck on the back straightaway.
A large wreck involving multiple championship contenders, one being Luke Peters, but even more involved, there's the 29 machine. I believe that's Harrison Chandler. I saw Bryn George also in there as well, and a big pileup on lap 1 to send us under our first yellow flag of the evening. Already out of turn 2, Luke Lafaro also with significant damage to the front end of his Camry. And 2 playoff drivers involved in the first incident of tonight. We'll try to take a replay and see exactly where this began. And it was coming off turn 2 where the field was spreading around. And you'll see around here, I believe it started with where that 16
Chandler
and that 29 was. Harrison Chandler and the 16 of Luke Peters. You'll see them coming along here to the back straightaway. There's the contact. The 29 gets to the outside wall, ricochets back to the 16, and watch as the field tries to run around it, but most getting involved here.
Yeah, it looks like Harrison Chandler tagged the wall and couldn't control it and went down into the 16 of Luke Peters. But let's try and go on board with Keelan Belsha. He had a narrow escape, and he was dodging cars on both sides. You see him right there, barely missing the 16 and barely missing the 8 of Bryn George. So that was a close call from all sides on that number 6.
Here's Keelan Belsha right as the wreck happens and parts the seas using the brake and giving that little steering input to get away from all the chaos on lap number 1. But as for everybody else, a lot of them with significant damage. That does include the driver of, I believe, the 44 as well. Benjamin A. White involved in contact. He gets some damage from this as well, as pace car now going to finally roll off, as now they've actually picked up the pace car here. Most of the leaders have done so, and already we looked at 2nd and 3rd being drivers to contend here, where Harrison Chandler, Luke Peters are sitting around 3rd and 4th, and now they have seemingly fallen out of the field. They did, at least for most of them, did pick up a faster pair. So you see Bryn George right there. Actually, he's staying time on pit road. Luke Peters also doing the same. He's got probably the least contact and damage out of the rest of them. And everybody else mostly down pit road. You see Benjamin White and Josh Redden making their trips out of pit road. Believe they've already utilized their faster pairs. And under first caution, I think if you're half of the playoff grid, Francisco, you'd probably like to see that some of the others are in trouble here to begin.
Yeah, it impacts their strategy given the fact that it happened on lap 1. If you weren't in that wreck, you can feel a little bit more relaxed about yourself. You know that they have setbacks, and that they're going to have one less fast repair in some cases, and that they're going to be on the back heel essentially, and they got to basically work their way out of it, and that makes the job easier for you. In the case of Eric Heater, he still is the race leader, so nothing's really changed for him. Matthew Oliveira, I believe, is down in the 4th or 5th position. I'm not exactly sure what the actual timing and scoring has for our restarts. I think that they're doing the choose cone, so he does choose the inside lane, I believe, and that'll put him in 5th in line. So depending how everybody decides to do choose cone when it actually comes down to do it, we'll see which lane prevails and which driver can make the most of the lane when we get around to the one to green.
And also to note, Matthew Oliveira, as he's fallen back to 5th, remember, he started on the outside of row 1, but using that outside lane is not the preferred lane around Atlanta Motor Speedway, so he seemingly fell back as everybody on the inside seeming to have pushed through, pushing Eric Heater, using that inside line at the front before, of course, everything started to build up on the back straightaway. So Heater will lead the first handful of laps in this race, most of it being under the pace car. We'll take the 1 to green signal this time by. We'll see exactly which lanes each driver will choose, and as word of the officials, the 29 of Harrison Chandler has received an end-of-line penalty. So as for the cause of the incident on lap number 1, he will be all the way to the tail end of the longest line. So here's the choose cone right at the start-finish line. Heater to the bottom, Bundren to the bottom, Rosero to the top. And I think now, Francisco, you're probably going to want to utilize the bottom on the restarts as much as possible, but much like we'll probably see if we get long runs here, a lot of drivers will probably end up to the outside wall, utilize a lot of different grooves, and try to get around the dirty air, which we may end up seeing so far here tonight.
Yeah, I think we'll definitely see guys work their way up the racetrack as the tires wear, but on the restarts, the inside lane is the prominent place to be for at least the launch, because if you can stay side by side with the car to your inside and pin them down to that white line or get a good enough side draft, then you can definitely make that outside work, because everyone will get right next to that wall in this back straightaway, and all that the package essentially does its job and creates the restrictor plate like train, and that could give you enough momentum to clear them going into turn 3. So it's basically a chess match as to how good can you get a restart in your position, and if you're on that outside, it's about pinning them on towards that inside lane and trying your best to stay side by side.
All right, so most of the field, at least in terms of a good amount of drivers, utilizing the inside line on this restart. Heater, of course, to the bottom. Oliveira gonna elect the top once again on his own right. We'll see how that fares when we go back green. As of lap 6, pace car is down, Heater's up and away. We're back under green from Atlanta.
This time was another early start for him. Of course, leader can go whenever he chooses, and you see what that did. It created about a 4-car length lead immediately for Eric Heater, and there you see Glenn Bundren once again able to get cleared for that second spot, utilizing that inside to get by Michael Rosero. We saw them battling back at Richmond a couple races ago. Keelan Belsha moved his way into the top 5, and they're about single file for the top half dozen.
So 1 and 2, 3 and 4 ends up clean on the racetrack. So on cold tires, I think a lot of them warmed up at least immediately. And for the leaders, they end up without incident to complete the first maybe green flag lap of this evening. Eric Heater out with about a half a second gap over Glenn Bundren, but he's got a little bit of fight of his own. Oliveira and the 23 of Rosero seep side by side. There is 54 of LaFaro, got his fast repair, now he's back up into the top 5, so he's already making quick moves, and we've seen LaFaro all season long. A lot of his wins have come from last lap passes at 1.5 mile venues. We saw it at Charlotte earlier this season in the playoffs, and then of course we saw it even earlier in the season, in the regular season, when he got his first win of the season, went around the second, or at least what was the first place car at the time, and grabbed the win in the final seconds at Texas Motor Speedway, another fairly abrasive track in its own right. But we've got a gaggle of cars here. You see LaFaro seeping all the way down. He's going to take it 3 wide here.
Yeah, we saw Michael Rosero get right into the back bumper of the 37. Aggressive move by Casey Drake to just dive it to the inside and take the position away from Glenn, who is struggling massively. We've seen him get sideways the last couple laps. Rosero got right to his rear bumper, upset the rear end of that 37, and they went 3 wide going into turn number 3. Luckily, they all made it through without issue, so no problems right now. See Casey Drake losing the nose of the car towards the bottom side of the racetrack, almost getting into one of your championship contenders in Matthew Oliveira. So a lot of action early on lap number 9, but we're able to settle through it.
And the driver of that number 770, that's actually Oliver Golding in his Aflac machine. Casey Drake is also referenced as right now sitting in the 18th running spot all by himself. So 2 Aflac cars here, one a Ford Mustang, one a Toyota Camry, but nonetheless it is all right. Oliver Golding making his first start in the series, running in the top 5 already. But Luke Lafaro, I'm saying that at least with the fast repair, he got that reset. He may have to be wary of what's going to happen for the next 90 laps or so, but his speed is definitely showing. He's crept into the top 3, and using that bottom groove, he's already making quick work of a lot of his competitors and could be on the way very well into catching up to second place Michael Rosero. We've seen 3 of these drivers compete for wins so many times. You see LaFaro going to elect to use the high side here in 1 and 2, going to clear some of that dirty air. That, for the most part, we've seen a good amount, Francisco, of drivers, a selection of drivers, rather, that have kept themselves in the front, have been the most consistent, and really in the playoffs tonight, it really shows off all the hard work that it takes to get here. Of course, you want to get that championship. The journey is not necessarily over, but to get consistent finishes, to get wins, and to consistently keep yourself at the front of the field and stay competitive is another challenge in its own, at least, category. And for the playoffs, you have to start thinking back a little bit, maybe looking and saying, hey, I did all this work, I'm here, and now I get to show kind of that finishing blow of what a championship will be.
Yeah, it takes skill and always a little bit of luck in racing when it comes to making it all the way to the championship 4. You have to do your part, and at the same time, sometimes a misfortune of others gives you that little bit you need to just get over the line or to have an insurance. And for Eric Heater, at least, it was a dominating season. He got 6 wins, each coming in a back-to-back fashion. The first 2, then the second of the 2 leading to the 4, and then the most recent 2 coming in the last 2 races. We see the 07 into the wall contact and another wreck on the back straightaway involving Benjamin White.
Benjamin White and Brady Floyd go around in the exit of turn 2. Caution weighs for the second time here tonight on lap number 13. And for the 44 of Benjamin White, this is 2 straight incidents he's been involved in. And another wreck ensues on the back straightaway. I think it resulted in one driver tagging the outside wall, and it might have been the 770 of Oliver Golding who got in at first. See him down pit road already. We'll take a look and see exactly what might have caused it. And you saw it in just a little bit coming off turn 2, Francisco. These guys were trying to maneuver for position. And once they were 3 wide, you see the 770 of Oliver Golding. He tags the outside wall for a bit, able to save his race car, but then as he's washing up, he gets into that wall, checks up a little bit, gets into Brady Floyd, and then from there tags on the 44 and the 20 as well.
Kenneth, you know what that was? That was dirty air right there. As soon as he went into the corner, you can tell that there was no way that car was making the corner. He just kept going up and up and up and up, and eventually he got into the wall, and the car's behind had nowhere to go. Right there, you see the nose is starting to take off on him, and he's just slowing down, but it's not enough, and just nowhere to go for Brady Floyd, and a couple other cars getting involved, including Benjamin White and the number 8 of Bryn George. So unfortunate circumstances for these guys in the backside of the field, so especially on lap 15. But another topic of discussion is with these cautions, these guys have 3 sets of tires. So if you want to go aggressive, if you're a championship driver, maybe like Luke Peters, who's a little bit further back, do you take a set now and try, do something different? Or do you have to save these tire sets to try and use them later in the race, considering the tire wear we see at a track like Atlanta?
It definitely could pose a very big risk. I think if you're a championship driver, if you're a non-playoff driver, I'm expecting a driver like that to take some of those risks. So some drivers already on pit road for damage control, but I haven't seen anyone go in for at least 4 tires and fuel, at least within this group of the leaders. And for the playoff drivers, I think it all depends on the situation where you lay. If you're guys like maybe say Luke Peters, who's a little bit further back in the field, if you haven't had the best night so far, although it's only been 15 laps, that's when you can probably make a key decision. But at the end of the day, you'll have to face consequences no matter whether they're good on your side or whether they're going to end up negatively towards your championship hopes. So as for now, no one's going to take that risk. I think Francisco will probably end up seeing that later in this race, especially near the halfway mark, and if we get longer runs, we may end up seeing it, maybe some yellows to sprinkle in as well. But for now, again, we lay under the yellow flag for the second time here tonight. And just a quick reminder that coverage of the CRL Cup Series right here on the KBueno Racing Network is brought to you by the NASCAR Geek, where they talk all things NASCAR. Join them for weekly coverage of new paint schemes, throwbacks, recaps, and general discussions about America's most popular motorsport. You can check out all of their content and follow along on their Instagram page, that is at the NASCAR Geek. I think the NASCAR Geek, Francisco, might be very busy considering the fact that they cover throwbacks, and tonight, or at least starting this weekend, starting tonight with the Truck Series, is the throwback week at Darlington for Mother's Day weekend in the NASCAR Series. So I think they'll probably have their hands full on that end.
Yeah, happy Mother's Day to all our mothers out there that take good care of their sons, their daughters, and everybody in their family. They're definitely the soul of our families per se. I think everyone will reconcile with that. And of course, you mentioned it, the throwback weekend at Darlington Raceway. This time in the Darlington race is back in May, not the Southern 500, but two Darlington races that are going to be run in the NASCAR Cup Series this year. And of course, we're starting off with the trucks and then Xfinity, then the Cup Series on Sunday in the afternoon setting, which will be interesting. Considering last year they did run the Real Heroes 400 and the return of NASCAR after the pandemic break, also under the daylight. So it's going to be interesting to watch those guys in those throwbacks running under the sunlight in South Carolina, Kenneth.
It definitely is going to be a lot of fun, but the fun is to be unfolded here. There's the choose cone rule, and Eric Heater once again elects to the bottom side. Michael Rizzero will again choose the top. Most of the field electing to change in their different lanes. Oliveira back up to the top. LaFaro to the inside. Bundren also to the bottom as well. Keelan Belsha going to look up top with, I believe that's the 17 of Brian Frantian, sporting the 81, but scored as the 17 on the racetrack. There's Luke Peters, who did not get his faster pair. He still has a bit of damage on his Ford Mustang, supported by Camping World, but at least for the moment, that damage doesn't seem to be affecting his speed all too much. I think he's playing the right strategy call here by waiting until he could use the faster pair for later and then kind of bursting it all out near the end so that he can run up front and, of course, have a clean card to do so. So Eric Heater, Michael Rizzero to the top two. Like you were going to say, Francisco?
Josh McMillan and Josh Redden did come down pit road under this caution. I believe they did take tires. They restart in the back end just outside the top 10. So if they did indeed take tires, they're going to be ones to watch on this restart.
All right, we'll see whether their call very early in this race ends up paying off. Again, Eric Heater, Michael Rizzero, your first row. Luke LaFaro, Matthew Oliveira, two playoff drivers in your second row to the top five, with Glenn Bundren completing it. Pace car down to pit road. We're back under green flag. Racing Eric Heater with a monstrous start back to turn one. Rizzero will have to find off for everybody from third on back, but as they head back to turn 1 and 2, once again, everybody almost single file as they head back in the banking.
And they did get single file. Now Rizzero up to second. Luke LaFaro down into the third position. So the top three, we've seen these guys run together in several races this season. We've seen battles between each other for multiple race wins, and especially during these playoffs, Rizzero has come close to many wins, beating the spoiler, and right now running second to the man who's been up front in almost every single playoff race and has gotten 6 wins on the season and trying to add a 7th and a championship, Eric Heater. But of course, on these restarts, you're never safe with this draft package that we have with these NASCAR Cup Series machines. You can just draft up onto a car on the beginning of these restarts and make any move as long as you're able to make it stick. But as tires wear and the dirty air will get worse and worse, and you're going to have to find a different line and try to get by.
And as for some, they're already choosing different lines. You see Keelan Belsha kind of washing up the track. He got passed by Oliveira. They were both side by side at one marker on that restart, but 57 able to squirm by and try to catch up to the 37. Glenn Bundren currently rides in the 4th running position. And as for everyone in the top 5, they are merely running the same lines, apart from maybe Glenn Bundren's running half a lane up. And we saw Glenn Bundren running so well in Chicago, or rather not, Richmond Raceway, the driver from Illinois, near the Chicagoland Speedway. He is one of the drivers that we've peeped throughout the rest of the season, at least when he joined about the halfway mark through the latter portions of this race. We've seen the way he's been able to maneuver his car. We've seen how close he's been to wins, how strong he's been relatively in the competition. And again, he's looking for this top 5, trying to look for another win. And again, competing with guys like Michael Rizzero, like Jonathan Oates for that win at Richmond was a lot of fun to see. And he's riding the top 4 as everybody in this group seeming to run the single file and nobody else making any moves for position at the moment.
Yeah, Glenn Bundren for Eagle Media Racing. He did make his debut, I believe, at Charlotte. Him and I were running 1-2 early on in that race. Unfortunately, didn't finish that way, but he has shown that speed to be able to run top 3, top 5 in these races, and he's done so in every single one. The finishes haven't gone his way per se, but he has shown the speed, and eventually he'll get one of those good finishes, and perhaps this is the night in which he does so, running under the shadow, of the championship contenders. Just, you can run your own race, not make as much noise, and what do you know? You pull out a solid finish at the end of the night, and they end up talking to us when it's all said and done, just like in any championship race when you have non-playoff drivers. They just sneak their way into the front of the field, and they end up talking to the guys in the booth after having a solid performance.
And you said it there at the top of the broadcast, whether non-playoff drivers are going to have sort of an effect with the championship battle. And if you're keeping that in mind, if you're a non-playoff driver, like let's say this battle here between 2 championship 4 drivers and then one Jesse Atkinson, who's not in the playoffs anymore, are running for position, running for aggressivity when it comes to points. You're not necessarily running for points if you're in the last race of the season, maybe for a jump behind the championship 4. However, you have to kind of keep in mind that these playoff drivers are running for a championship. They're here for a reason, as to whether you can be kind of a little bit careful when running around them. You don't want to necessarily ruin their race. You don't want to necessarily directly affect their championship hopes, but you do also want to keep in mind that you want to run for a race win too. You're here for a reason as well. You're here because you want to get extra points on the headway. You want to get good momentum coming out of the season, and of course you want to get your first win if you don't have it, or if you do already have it, try to double up and get more along the way. So that battle, though, settles in. Luke Peters gets the benefit of the doubt, but as for now, top 2 have been fairly close together, with Luke Lafaro running that top lane. Rosero, though, has been hounding on the rear end of Eric Heater right now.
And you know, I know what that experience is like, being a non-championship contender, fighting these playoff guys. And you covered one of those races in the Bungeon Lawn Care Series at Homestead Miami Speedway. In that championship race, there was a couple of non-playoff drivers up there in the front, and we were trying our best not to interfere with the championship race, but at the same time, we had to race for ourselves, try to get the best finish that we can for our team, for our sponsors. And you know, it's tough, but you have to do it. And at the same time, you want to do it. You're racing. There's no point in going out there and just letting cars go if it's just going to come to your detriment. As right now, you see Rosero have a good run off turn number 2. Contact! Rosero down to the apron after making a contact with the left rear of Eric Heater. He saves it, but he's able to keep going, but he's lost all track position.
Oh, and that's going to be a blow to the 23 of Michael Rosero. You saw that bit of contact as they were going into turn 3. Rosero was all the way in the back bumper, almost gave him that shove, decided to peek to the inside. Eric Heater, I guess, tried to maybe pinch him down low, but then ended up getting into him. I don't believe there's significant damage on Rosero's car. It doesn't seem to be from a visual standpoint, but in terms of track position, that really served a very big one. And as for the front of the field, here comes championship contender Luke Lafaro, utilizing the outside. Going to use the middle here for the race lead.
What a move to get into the outside. Heater tries to clear him off the corner, but look for Luke Lafaro to try to make some move into turn 1. Heater aggressive to defend the lead on Michael Rosero, and they did make contact with the left rear of the 10. You see now the championship contenders running 1-2 right now. This is what we're trying to see here, Kenneth. The championship contenders at the front of the field battling each other, with Glenn Bungeon following suit.
And Glenn Bungeon could also spoil the party as well if these two decide to battle, wear off their tires in what may be the longest run of the evening so far. Bungeon could try to take advantage and take the race lead some laps of his own. But as for Lafaro, that move to the inside, or to the outside rather, did not fare well. He's going to stick behind the 10 and maybe utilize the same situation that Michael Rosero did, just hanging behind the race leader until you get the run off turn 2 or run off of any corner and get right to the back bumper, peek your nose to the bottom, and make this pass. Lafaro has yet to do it, but the top 3 have closed in well together. Here's Bungeon now to the back bumper of the 54.
He's going to give him a push down the back straightaway, but it wasn't enough to get to the outside. Actually, he's trying to look to the outside of Eric Heater now in the corner, but he can't quite get there. So the 54 does look like he's a tad bit faster than the 10, but it comes down to having that clean air, and Eric Heater has it. Lafaro wants it. He's got to figure out a way behind him. See right there, he has to check up. Bungeon with a little tap to the rear of the 54. The 54 right onto the rear bumper of the 10, and that is not going to help your tires and the air on your car. Bungeon now to the outside of Lafaro. He's going to try and take over the second spot, and he's going to have a shot at the race leader. Right now, Heater looks a bit uncomfortable, and he's going to be challenged by these guys because they've been able to get right up to him on this long run. Perhaps different methods of tire saving.
Probably is, but you got to be uncomfortable if you're the 10 of Eric Heater, because you see a playoff driver right behind you. Now it seems a little more comfortable knowing that you have that buffer for Glenn Bungeon in second, but you have drivers right to the rear view mirror. And look at Glenn Bungeon, power move through the middle of 1 and 2. Will he have the run out of the corner? Yes, he will. Bungeon in the Chevrolet Camaro to the outside. Here comes Lafaro, 3 wide.
3 wide into turn number 3. Lafaro backs out, probably thinking the better of it. But how about that from Glenn Bungeon in turn number 1 and 2? He just made the outside work, and he's going to stay side by side with Heater. Heater now has to make a decision. Does he race Bungeon for this lead? The lead is crucial, but that's not his battle. So it just comes down to, contact between the two.
And they able to make contact, but they do save it. Bungeon almost went around, almost with a half spin. Lafaro now going to give advantage way. That could have been very disastrous, and I believe Heater may have some damage to the left side, to the right side of his race car rather. They'll stay top 3 though, and you gotta imagine though, already on lap number 32, we're in our longest green flag run of the evening. So does this pose a threat to the way the tire conservation is going? If you're running for position this aggressively, how long will it take? But for everybody on 4th on back, for Rosero to start coming back, for Keelan Belsha to put his name in the hat, how long will it take for that to ensue with the way these drivers have been racing? Bundren, though, not done with the race lead just yet. He's still trying to gain ground on the 10 machine.
And the 54 realized, look at that, how much of a push he's giving Bundren, trying to get him up there. If he can get them side by side, that just helps him. 4 cars under a train here, and this is just allowing everyone else to catch up. Peter is not as fast as these 3 are. They're all faster than him. He just has the clean air and is able to defend. I mean, he's been a little aggressive, and maybe that opens up the conversation. How aggressive is too aggressive? And knowing the driver behind that 37, he won't put up with it for too long. But look at this. Just goes right around the outside, and he's actually in a favorable spot here if Lafaro can get behind him once again, and he might be able to get him into 3 and 4. It's going to be close.
He's got the push and the help from the 54 Lafaro to turn 3. Glenn Bundren is your new race leader. First lead change all night long. Heater going to try and make a retaliation move, but watch this, almost a little bit loose goes the 37 to Bundren, and now Lafaro to the outside for the race lead as they come across the stripe.
And Lafaro led that lap just barely, but Bundren did get loose off turn number 4, and Heater had to check up for him. Lafaro's been working this outside. Now he's going to be side by side with Glenn Bundren off this corner. He has the momentum, and Luke Lafaro to the race lead and championship lead on lap 35. What insane battling we have here, Kenneth.
And this is outstanding what we're seeing between 2 playoff drivers and 1 non-playoff driver. And for now, Luke Lafaro holds control of the race lead. And as they continue to tango for second on back, Rosero now looking in, almost contact between Bundren and Heater. They are not done just yet. And now Rosero may try to pounce, and it took at least mention how long it would take for anybody else in the top 5 to start to catch up with the way these drivers have been handling. Michael Rosero going to be the next driver to give a say into this, and this may help Lafaro's case to run away from this field. Lafaro got put in the wall. Rosero actually got put in the wall. There goes Belk to the inside. He's a lap car, but they still maintain tight, and almost in the wall he goes again.
Bundren losing the nose of his car there, but him and Heater have been making a lot of contact the last couple of laps, and Heater does not sound happy in the race chat right now, so a lot of tension going on in this middle portion of the race, Kenneth, but these guys have to try and keep it under themselves and try to stay focused for the rest of these laps. Bundren plays off turn number 2. What a save.
Oh, Bundren keeps it together, keeps it straight, almost got into Rosero in the 23, and luckily he's able to trot on with his race car. I was going to mention how the damage is not necessarily affecting either Heater, Lafaro, or Bundren all too heavily, but as for tire conservation, it is not going in the way of that 37 machine. He has to really handle his car to even get anywhere straight on the racetrack. And for Heater now, he is still in contention for second, at least able to keep Luke Lafaro in his crosshairs as everything settles within the top 5. How about the drivers here in 5th and 6th that we haven't talked about too much? The driver of the 6th machine, Keelan Belsha, started all the way back in the 10th machine, or 10th place rather, and went up to the top 5, has now been creeping in and slowly closing that gap to Glenn Bundren. And also the driver got a fast repair and an end of line penalty. Harrison Chandler started up front in the 4th position, got into that wreck to start it off, and has now crept his way back. These 2 drivers merely on a comeback as they started this race.
A good comeback by these guys, and Keelan Belsha repping the channel. He's out there running the KBRN cars. He scrubs the wall right there. And Harrison Chandler, who did have that end-of-line penalty, has worked his way to his rear bumper. So these guys are making some strong comebacks right now. But Kenneth, I'm looking at the leaders right now. Heater with that damage, you said it's not affecting that too much, and it's not. But he hasn't really been able to gain ground that much on your race leader, as he gained about a 10th that time. But he gained a good amount of time when the leader was getting passed by a lap car there not too long ago. And you see these lines they're running. Heater's down on the bottom. Lafaro's able to run right against that wall. And you're wondering which one's going to work out in whose favor. And I think on this end of the track, Lafaro looks to be a little bit better than Eric Heater. And right here, Heater moves up and basically equalizes whatever comes out of the front straightaway. Actually, Lafaro goes to the bottom that time. So they're alternating lines. And you see what the difference that makes. I think Lafaro is going to gain this time. And he does. He gains about a 1.5 tenths, actually almost 2 tenths on Eric Heater that time. So they're going back and forth on which line's going to work best. And you have to also consider just how much is the damage affecting Heater, because these Cup cars are quite sensitive to damage, especially on the right side. It hampers the handling a significant amount.
And especially when you go to a track like Atlanta, and even more so, it's exacerbated on the super speedways to the point where if you get any sort of damage, with the way these cars are so aero sensitive, and of course they have the high downforce package that they use currently in the NASCAR Cup Series. Any of that damage won't necessarily bring a tire rub like it would in real life, but it definitely will slow your car a little bit, especially when it comes to the straightaways. In the corners, it won't be as bad, and that's what's at least helping Eric Heater here. It's a sort of a balance. He's not necessarily gaining all that speed down the straightaways, but when he goes in the corners, he's able to maintain a good amount of speed, and it isn't hampering his car all too much. But now it comes into question as to whether Heater is probably looking forward to going down pit road and whether he'll burn a fast pair off or whether he'll be willing to sacrifice a bit of time on pit road to the rest of the guys to get this damage fixed and hold on to that fast pair for the end of the race. Because already we're 7 laps away from the halfway mark of this entire event, and there's already one playoff driver that has made this call early. 57, Matthew Oliveira out of pit road.
Yeah, if you think about it, these guys barely, I don't think any of them have come down pit road. We have a fuel fill of about 65%. So without realizing, Kenneth, these guys are probably a couple laps away from making green flag pit stops if you haven't stopped at all. There you see, that's actually Benjamin White, who is multiple laps down on pit road. But you saw there, Matthew Oliveira, he was running in the backside field. There you see Luke Peters. They're trying different strategies because they're not up there with that top 2. And another thing, here comes Michael Rosero. He's caught up to the 10, who's lost touch with the 54. So this is exactly the position that Luke Lafaro wants to be in. We saw him getting 2 wins this season, both coming at mile and a half on a last lap pass. But this race, to this point at least, has gone different for Lafaro. He's up there leading these laps. And Heater's kind of struggling at this point in the race.
And for Heater, you may have to think that this pass, if Rosero is able to complete it for second, will probably be a dead-eye signal to go straight down pit road and kick off this green flag strategy early between the top 5 leaders. But as for now, he's been able to fend off the 23, not able to get the run, although he's got a less damaged car than Heater at the moment. But they're kind of in a tandem machine, letting Luke Lafaro seemingly run away with this race control. As for the 54, we may end up seeing either him or many other drivers in the top 5 go down pit road because Luke Lafaro, he pitted about 3 laps earlier, and now here he comes down pit road. Remember, he went down pit road the first time to grab a faster pair on that first lap incident. There's Rosero and Glenn Bundren Jr. to join this fray. I believe Keelan Belsha locking up the brakes, but he's able to make pit road speed limit. And all of them going to go down. Actually, Rosero might be out of fuel. He's wiggling the race car here.
He's out of fuel and he's coming to a stop. Michael Rosero is probably done for the race.
Oh my goodness. This was about 45 laps in the making on this run for Michael Rosero. And now he is limping, seemingly, to his stop. Here comes Eric Heater as well. Now we have to wonder whether Eric Heater has enough fuel in the tank to make this stop and end up on pit road. Remember, he's the first stall out of everybody. He took the pole tonight. So he has to go all the way to the very end of pit road to make this stop. Seems as though, as for now, he seems to be okay. And actually, he's coasting as well.
Yeah, he's slowing just barely, probably trying to make sure he has enough to get to his stall. But he is losing a little bit of time, probably about a 10th or 2. He does make it safely, though, so he will have no major issues. But these guys have really pushed it to the limit. And look who's in the lead. The guy who restarted in the tail end.
That is Harrison Chandler in the 29. And now, if the way this race has gone, with the way the green flag stops has went, and with the way that we've seen a couple of drivers lose fuel and lose fuel pressure, I have to think that they probably weren't even keeping in mind the fuel strategy, or maybe they were just trying to run to the end, because I didn't see many other drivers elect to pit a little bit earlier. So for the top leaders, maybe they kind of forgot that there was a pit strategy under green flag stops, or maybe they were expecting a yellow, so we're just staying out and out, hoping that a caution was going to come out to save the day. But indeed he didn't. As for Eric Heater, he's losing a lot of time, but he does end up making his stall. Now he is out of pit road, but he has a handle of his race car in order to do so. Naturally, he's going down once more. He may have not filled that car all the way to the full tank, and this is going to lose him even more, as he's already 1 lap down in the top 10.
Major championship implications as he's coming down pit road for a second time. We're not exactly sure what it is. Could it have been a potential pit road penalty on that 10 car coming in? We saw him. He was coasting the fuel. Maybe he went a little bit too hot, trying to make sure he had enough to get to his stall. We see him actually pull back in, probably serving a 26-second penalty right there for speeding on pit road, which is the usual iRacing penalty for speeding. And Kenneth, it appears to be that's exactly what the penalty is. 6 wins on the season for Eric Heater. And I know the night's not over yet, but that has to sting.
It definitely does. Now he comes out of pit road. Actually, he didn't stay 26 seconds, so I think this may have been a fuel situation here. The fact that he only stayed about maybe 5 to 8 seconds on pit road, I think he had it calculated on an honest stall, because in iRacing you can actually play with the amount of liters you put in your tank when you go down pit road. Obviously controlling of the tires, whether you get a windshield tear off, whether you can burn off fast repairs. For Eric Heater, he did not burn the fast repair, but he probably may have taken down the fuel to the point where it was not enough and it was not all the way filled. So then he had to make that second trip in order to make sure that it was all 100% so he can try to make it to the end of this race. There's Josh Redden in the 28. He's going to go down pit road. He's one of the last left that has yet to pit. Top two is also not refrained or have refrained from going down pit road at the moment. That is Harrison Chandler and the 55 of Jeffrey Belk. These two have yet to pit. Chandler on a 35-lap run right now, Belk on a 25-lap run, so maybe these guys can stretch it out just a little bit more before they end up making their first visits of the day. But as for the playoff drivers, Francisco, saw that slight mishap down pit road for Eric Heater, and this further probably ensures Luke Lafaro's advantage in the championship for the halfway mark of this race.
It does, but now I want to talk about a different thing before we continue to talk about what just happened. So the 3 leaders, or the 2 leaders actually, they pitted later in the race, I believe on the last caution or so. So they have extra fuel, and that might be enough to put them in a window to make it to the end of the race on one more stop. We know everybody who just pitted has to stop again, but this may work out in Chandler's favor if he's able to make this strategy work. If he comes down pit road now, then forget what I'm saying, but if he stays out for about another 10 laps or 15 laps, he just may have enough fuel to go the rest of the race with just the 1 extra pit stop, and he'll have better tires for the better part of about 20-25 laps. So he may end up with this big of a lead in the end of the race, even though he'll have worse tires. But I think Lafaro might run out of time if this stays green, Kenneth. So I'd look out for this alternate strategy that this 29 is playing.
You can definitely play it, and the fact that he's a non-playoff driver also helps his case, because he can stay out, he can take this risk, and oh well, if he doesn't get the win, if he doesn't get the points, doesn't matter. It's the final race of the season. He's not running for a championship. There's Keelan Bush on the fresher tires, going to move to the inside, and Michael Rosero is also going to follow suit, so these two going to tag along as almost Rosero. I think he was going to try and push it 3 wide, but he's actually going to end up at least pushing the 29, giving that extra draft. Now going to make this pass, this R to unlap themselves. Rosero and Keelan Bush. Bush currently sitting in 5th. Rosero riding all the way back in 13th. He is 2 laps down on the track. So as for Heater and Rosero, this was a strategy that did not work at the end of the night, because they have been put multiple laps down on end. And for Heater and Rosero, they're both 2 laps down. So not only do they have to work to unlap themselves on the track when Harrison Chandler pits, but they also have to work a little bit extra in order to get that extra lap back, or hope a caution comes out in the meantime. But as we're under our green flag run, the first green flag run of the evening on lap number 56, so we'll take a moment to remind you that if you want to join the conversation with us up in the KBRN booth, you can perhaps do so by using hashtag AskKBRN. You can put your question followed by that hashtag. We'll be sure to answer your question as soon as it's sent it and to the best of our abilities. That is hashtag AskKBRN for anything you want to ask. So as for now, Luke Lafaro controlling the championship for Hunt. Jeffrey Belk finally makes his stop down pit road. Or at least he got passed. He got unlapped, or he's now back to 4th, but he is also a driver that has yet to pit. So Lafaro now moves to 2nd. Harrison Chandler now still currently your race leader without a signal to go down pit road. So as for Lafaro, do you feel a little bit more comfortable here at the halfway mark of this race, knowing that the mistakes that the other championship drivers have had or the way their nights have gone, does it give a little bit more comfort knowing that you have this sort of a gap in this lead?
You're not celebrating the championship yet, but you definitely are feeling a sigh of relief knowing that you haven't made a mistake to this point, and he's the only car of the championship drivers that isn't 2 laps down. I believe the next championship driver is actually Luke Peters, who's on the lead lap right now. He is, according to the scoring that I have from iRacing, he's on the lead lap, but I don't think he quite is. But regardless, Eric Heater was the guy he was racing, and he had that unfortunate pit road circumstance that has probably taken him out of it, unless there's a caution that a series of cautions that really work in his favor. We see right now he's on the racetrack with Jesse Atkinson, but you have to think about it like this, Kenneth. I mean, the guy has been the most dominant driver of the season. I've raced against him throughout the season. He's definitely shown that he's been the best driver this season, and to capture the 6 wins and to come into this final race and not get the championship, it's going to hurt, because he won almost half the races of the season.
And for Eric Heater, it has been a dominating season for him nonetheless, and all those wins that he's accrued over this entire season. Think about 6 wins in this season going into tonight. And we had talked about it so much of the way he got 2 in a row earlier with Michigan and the Charlotte Roval. the way he's captured wins kind of in and out, even though some of them have not gone his way, a lot of others, and pretty much most of them in percentage-wise, have been with either him up front, him leading laps, or him winning at the end of the day. And as for Heaters, he's getting put in a hole, but there's still about 40 laps to go until we finally decide a champion. So there is ample time to make this comeback work. And if a caution comes out, that could blow everything out of proportion. And for Eric Heater, he needs 2 cars to pass in order to go on the lucky dog position. The other cars he needs to pass are Brian Fratian in turn 2 and Jacob McMillan now going into, I believe, what is turn 3 right now on the racetrack. So everybody fairly separated, but under this long green flag run, that pushes Luke LaFaro to the race lead. And mentioned Harrison Chandler, he's gone down pit road, so he falls back all the way to the 7th running position. And now Luke LaFaro up at the front leading laps, so Glenn Bunger not too far behind.
I think it'll be too many laps that Chandler has to run in this last run, considering when he pitted to be able to make it. Maybe I'm wrong, but it's definitely really close. I'm just not sure if he'll be able to get there in time. He has better tires now, so he can actually save fuel and at the same time maintain his delta gap. And what I mean by a delta gap is with the better tires, he's able to naturally gain on these guys because they'll have older tires than him. But if he neutralizes the gap, not only does he maintain whatever he had before he came into pit road, but he also saves fuel, which will really help him in that last run overall. So if he does decide to try and sort of keep a similar pace to these guys, which will save him some fuel, not to mention save him tires, of course, but it'll ultimately preserve that gap later in the race. I'm not sure if he's thinking about that, but that is something I would be thinking about if I was behind the wheel of that car. But here we see race leader and championship leader Luke LaFaro has a 2-second lead on Glenn Bundren, who was falling off towards the end of that run when we saw the major battle for second, but he's sort of worked his way back up in a second, and he's the only car within about 6 seconds of Luke LaFaro, as third place Jeffrey Belk is down into the 3rd position, about 6.5 seconds back. So the separation has really played a factor here in this middle portion of the race. Keelan Belsha in the 4th spot, kind of by himself. He's in no man's land. And Harrison Chandler has worked his way already up to the 5th position. So we kind of have the bed made as far as who's going to be in the top 5 unless there's a late caution.
You talked about the 55 of Jeffrey Belk. You're watching him running in for 3rd. There's Michael Rosero in an attempt to unlap himself, just walking through the field right now on fresher tires. Not for position this battle is, but 55 of Jeffrey Belk, sporting one of the at least older Michael Waltrip schemes or Mark Martin schemes that they ran for Michael Waltrip Racing, that 55 Toyota Camry with Noah's on the front hood and the side instead of Aaron's in sort of the same font. But I mentioned 4 Cloak Media in the chat. He's been an avid fan of Jeffrey Belk, rooting on him for this race. So hoping that Jeffrey Belk gets it done at the end of 100 laps here at Atlanta, and so far in a very good spot, running within the top 3. And then you look to another paint scheme that represents right here us, the KBueno Racing Network. Keelan Belsha in the 6 machine riding in 4th. We've seen Keelan Belsha a handful of times in this series, but he hasn't made too many starts. But ever since his appearance, or at least his first appearance here, he has done rather well just running around, and at least even with the damage not necessarily affecting his car all too much. So now, Francisco, as the laps start to wind down, you're getting closer to about 15 laps to go here at Atlanta. You said that there was going to be a second pit stop. They're not going to make it all the way to the end here. So if you're going to get this close, are you going to try and save early if you're guys like LaFaro or if you're anyone else with the distance? Or do you think it's probably better to run it all the way dry, then pit very quickly, just serve it with fuel and tires, and then be on your way to the final laps of the race?
Definitely don't save, because the only person that can stand any chance is going to be Chandler, and I don't even think he has enough fuel to go quite all the way to the end unless he's saving right now. So if you're the rest of these leaders, they pit around lap 45, between lap 45 and lap 50. So they've gone already about just over 20 laps on their current run, and we may see them down. And they had a lot of caution laps, if you remember, under that first run. So perhaps we'll see them coming down pit road sometime in the next probably in the next 15 to 20 laps, stretching it. So well before the end of the race, so it's definitely not worth saving. But the window is open now. If you want to pit, you pit now. The only thing is, and you would probably remember this when we covered the 4Wide Racing League on Max TV earlier this week, at this very same racetrack, it's probably worth waiting later to pit, because contrary to the real-life counterparts of this racetrack, the tires actually are more of a benefit when you put them on later.
Yeah, probably will be the advantage here. And for Harrison Chandler, this is a move advantageously for 3rd. So on the fresher tires and the alternate strategy, Chandler moves past Keelan Belcher easily and also gets over and are going to try to catch up. But there is a 6.5 second gap between Harrison Chandler himself and the driver up in front in Glenn Bundren. And now Bundren going to make his final stop early on lap number 69. So again, talking about the alternate strategy of Harrison Chandler, this is an alternate strategy in itself. Jeffrey Belk also just recently pitted. So now these guys are making early calls to go to the end of this race.
And why not? They're non-playoff drivers. They're going for the win. If they lose, oh well. But if they win, this could be what gave them that opportunity to win. You see Bundren there taking his tires and fuel. So, Kenneth, these guys have absolutely nothing to lose. I do not blame them whatsoever for trying something different. If they go down the same road as LaFaro, they're probably not going to win this race.
Well, as for Glenn Bundren and Jeffrey Belk, maybe they'll make their calls very early, and this could come key, especially when a caution comes out, especially now. Because in the final 30 laps, you'll have everybody go down pit road, and you'll be maybe about a lap or two difference, which is still something, but it isn't as large as if you stayed a while, maybe 10 to 15 laps before drivers ended up going down pit road. But as we get to the line, there are now 30 laps to go until the end of this race. Luke LaFaro still controlled the race lead ever since he's got it on this pit strategy. Harrison Chandler second. Keelan Belcher rounds out the top three. Glenn Bundren, though, goes hard into the outside wall, and I believe he may have vaulted forward before the caution is waved, so we dodge a bullet there. But for Glenn Bundren, that was a hard hit to the outside wall. We'll take a replay. That was significant. I'm not sure how that began.
Incredible. I mean, we just cut to him, and he was sideways. I'm not sure exactly what happened. We'll try and get a better look here. He was racing the 55 of Belk, and we saw Belcher slower on the racetrack with these older tires. Bundren just gets loosed off 4 and overcorrects it.
And he almost gets into Keelan Belcher on the way there. That was a mere inches between himself, his front bumper, and Keelan's back bumper. You see there on cold tires. Car gets loose and just sends it back into the outside wall and then quickly exits before it is all said and done for Glenn Bundren. So I guess the early strategy call didn't fare out well for him whatsoever. And we have Glenn Bundren out of this race, unfortunately, for what we usually see most times are very good races and solid races for the driver, the 37. He may have to wait for another solid finish when next season begins. But no call for pit road for Luke LaFaro. He's on a 27-lap run, so if he goes even further, he'll probably get to lap 90 and try to get to lap 100. But it very well may be very close, and he may have to save probably a little bit considering the gap that he has. It's 12 seconds between these top two, and then here comes the next playoff driver that is eligible, Luke Peters, in the top 5, about 30 seconds back, almost half a track behind the current race leader, and almost about to be put 1 lap down on the racetrack. Well, it became a message of closeness between the championship 4, and it's now pretty much strung out ever since this run began.
And it all started towards the end of that first run. We saw contact with Heater and Bundren a couple of times. Rosero getting involved. We saw a lot of action in a span of about 5 to 10 laps, and that's what's really opened this race up for Luke LaFaro, not to mention Bundren now, who tried the alternate strategy, who was running in second, and this has just opened up the lead. We see Chandler. Remember, Chandler is on a little bit fresher tires than Luke LaFaro, and potentially does not have to pit anymore in this race. Probably is saving fuel now and is the only one who can probably get to the end of this race if he does save. Everybody else on this racetrack will have to make it another pit stop, and it may be sometime in the next 10 to 15 laps, Kenneth. It's just based on the fuel numbers that we do have from this race and in this session, we'll definitely see these leaders come down pit road at least once more. But the only person that I think has a chance to stretch it, whether they try to or not, is that 29 of Harrison Chandler.
And he may be very well on this route to stay to the end. You saw it there and you heard it there as he was passing Oliveira. May looking at turn 1. There's the clutch being engaged on the race car, going back to the gas in the middle of the corner. He did that in 3 and 4 last time by, and he's doing it every single time around the racetrack. So you say it there, he's able, or probably the only driver really eligible, to save all the way to the end, and he's already on that strategy, employing it to try and get to the end of this race and try to get this checkered flag. As for Luke LaFaro, there is no sign of saving, so he may expect LaFaro to go down pit road or maybe using a different strategy throughout. Remember, he does not have to win this race. He has to stay ahead of the championship 4 contenders in order to be considered the championship holder and the championship winner at the end of these laps and the ends of the final laps. So he doesn't necessarily have to take the checkered flag, although it would be very sweet to do so. He does not have to win. So if the strategy goes awry, he just has to stay in front of the other 4 and he will be crowned the champion. You see him laying off the throttle a little bit, but no signs of saving for the driver of the 54.
And he shouldn't. He should definitely be doing exactly what he's doing because he knows he can't make it. So why? There's no reason to bother saving fuel when you know you have to come down pit road once again. So LaFaro will continue circulating around the racetrack. And if you look at the gap between the top two, it's stabilizing at about 12.2 seconds. So Chandler, despite saving the fuel that he is maintaining with your race leader. And that comes down to those better tires that he has, which is about 15 laps better tires than everybody else on the racetrack. So he's able to save fuel and not lose time. So if he does have enough fuel to the end, it's up to the 54 of Luke LaFaro run him down with his better tires and completely push the car with those better tires and catch up to Chandler. And remember, if LaFaro pits where he is right now, he'll most likely end up on the same part of the racetrack as Chandler, except he'll be trying to unlap himself. So he'll have to make up a whole lap in about 10 laps, and I just don't see how that happens. And there's Luke Peter down pit road, who was the second highest championship driver. So Luke LaFaro now is on an island of his own as far as championship contenders. It has not gone anybody else's way as far as the championship contenders. You see Keelan Belsha, who was running in third, is down pit road. The jacks are up on that right side, and they're going to come around and change left side tires. So he is the first of the main leaders right now to come down pit road. We'll see how soon will it take for Luke LaFaro to come in. I'm not sure he's too worried about Belsha considering the big lead that he had, but he may want to come down pit road soon just to make sure that he makes his final pit stop. And I don't think actually Belsha's left his stall yet. I'm not quite sure if he's having an issue there, but he's still in his pit stall, so troubles for that 6.
On another driver with troubles on pit road, we saw it first with Eric Keeter. We're seeing it again with non-playoff driver Keelan Belsha. And for Luke Peters, he gets out clean. He finally burns off his fast repair, so at least what I said was right with 20 laps to go, that he was going to wait to the end in order to burn the fast repair for a pit stop and then now have a clean car to the end. Only problem is he's already 2 laps down on the racetrack, and here comes race leader Luke LaFaro to the entrance of pit road. Going to make his final stop with just under 20 laps to go. Harrison Chandler will stay out, and he will inherit the race lead. He is on that saving strategy, so he only has about 18 or so laps to go until he can try to keep it there on the racetrack. There's Oliveira down pit road as well. He's already a couple laps down, and this will probably end up, Francisco, going to the benefit of Luke LaFaro because he had those gaps. And all the way to third, from first to third, it was 30 seconds of a gap. So although it was only 12 seconds between himself and Harrison Chandler at one point, it was more than 30 seconds to the driver in third. So with Luke LaFaro pitting now, he's able to maintain that distance, and for most of the field being 1 lap down or more, this could potentially secure Luke LaFaro's chances of staying out front of the championship lead and trying to secure a championship if this race stays green as he goes out.
Yeah, he's definitely in a solid position right now, and as long as he has no troubles, I don't see how the others can overcome their problems in the next 17 laps. And of course, they'll have to make up the positions through the restarts, let alone actually get up there, considering any damages that they may have to the car. I know Luke Peters just got a fast repair, but he is at least a lap down, and he will have to at least pass race cars on the racetrack if we do get a caution. So their work will be cut out for them, but unless there's a caution, then none of this will potentially work out in their favor. I mean, look how many cars are laps down in this race. So many cars are lapped down with this long green flag run. We've gone about 70, 75-ish laps on the green flag here, Kenneth, and it's been a very long run. And if we look at the timing sheets, this is working out exactly as how I mentioned. Jeffrey Bulk did pit a little bit later than everybody, but early enough to where he is going to have to come down pit road before the end of the race, most likely in the next 10 laps. And that will hand over second to Luke LaFaro, or Luke LaFaro could just go up there and pass him with the much better tires. But if you look at the gap between Chandler and LaFaro, it's about 27, 26 seconds, and I just don't see LaFaro being able to make up that time in 15 laps. But if Chandler has to save even more, then it becomes a bigger possibility that can happen.
It definitely does, and we've seen it multiple times before, Francisco. I think in a handful of races I can already recall. Ford Ride Racing at Dover. I think also there was another race at Dover. I believe it was I believe it was the Galaxy Cup Series a while back that I covered, where one driver stayed out to the end, tried to save as much fuel, and then lost all the time, lost the position in the final laps of the race, and ultimately lost the race. He did finish second, but he almost ran out of fuel before it was all said and done. And remember, that also comes into mind. If you're Harrison Chandler, you're saving, but you also have to know that the risk of running out of fuel on the racetrack is very viable and is very real. So although LaFaro can try to make up this gap on fresh tires, if Harrison Chandler runs out of fuel at the right moment, LaFaro can easily eat that gap in and take over the race lead and try to go for the race win. That is, though, if we stay green. There's still 13 laps left in this race, so anything could happen. But for Chandler, his strategy is already well deep in, saving as much as he can in every corner and still maintaining himself relatively consistent. He's running about 32.4s, 32.5s, so he's not necessarily falling off significantly, although Luke LaFaro is running 30.4s on the fresh tires. So in the final 13 laps of this race, we'll have to find out how this strategy works. But for Chandler, he's in the catbird seat as he's saving fuel still.
Yeah, and part of him saving fuel early in that run did save him some tires in a sense. So he has a little bit better tires than most of the field did when they were this long into their run, which is a little bit beneficial for him. But Luke LaFaro basically has to gain just under about 2 seconds each lap if he wants to catch the 29 by the end of this race. And he's doing exactly that, to be fair. He is now under 20 seconds behind the race leader. And he's actually making the move now for second on Jeffrey Belk. So move the 54 officially into the second position. As you see him, Jeffrey Belk, all the way back there. And that's just the difference tires make here at Atlanta. So LaFaro, I believe, is actually 17 seconds behind. So Chandler, although saving fuel, may end up getting passed physically on the racetrack by Luke LaFaro if he's not careful enough.
You see the gap on the bottom of your screen, 17.4, now 17.3 seconds, and lowering between first and second. And that is the difference in the fresh tires versus the old tires. And, of course, the fact that Harrison Chandler was saving fuel and that Luke LaFaro is now going 100%. He knows he can make it to the end of this race. So we're approaching 10 laps to go from the virtual Atlanta Motor Speedway to cap off the CRL Cup Series season. What has been a wild one already. There's Eric Heater aiming to unlap himself. He is 2 laps down on the racetrack. And what has been a significant drop for Eric Heater, a heartbreaking run to the finish if this stays green. There's Rosero pushing his way through. Harrison Chandler gets passed, and now it is down to 15 seconds. So how long does it take for Luke LaFaro to catch up? And the question also remains whether that 54 is able to catch up to that 29 in time in the final laps. Harrison Chandler now in position to win his first race in his CRL Cup Series career, and it would be most likely under long green flag circumstances.
And there's only 3 cars on the lead lap. Jesse Atkinson in 4th place is the first car 1 lap down in this race. So the spread has been real in this green flag run of about almost 80 laps. And as the leaders are taking 10 laps to go, we're in the final 9 laps of the season, and this race has been nothing of what I expected. In the first 40-45 laps, it was exactly what I expected, but ever since that first round of green flag pit stops, it's just been complete haywire.
And you saw it there in the opening laps, and we had seen it before. I think I'd seen it in the MPI Cup Series right here at this very track, where cold tires brought a lot of cars, took a lot of them out. It was a big one on lap 1. It wasn't on turn 2 back straightaway. It was turn 4 front straightaway, but still, it was a very big wreck to take a couple of cars and damage out of the race, or at least out of contention. It wasn't a championship event, but then for the rest of this race, we saw green flag runs. There were more cautions, which is more than we've seen here tonight. There's only been 1, or I believe 2 cautions here in this race to start it, and we haven't had a caution since. So as we've been running through this race, we ride on board with Luke LaFaro trying to cut in this gap. It has been probably one of the races that we did not expect at all. We were probably expecting more yellows down the stretch, maybe some sprinkles of yellows. But as for now, it's been relatively clean. Glenn Bundren's incident could have easily been a yellow, but he did save himself alt F4ing and exiting the session. So although that was going to be considered a yellow flag, the fact that he exited very early before iRacing could notice it and stayed us under green. I think a lot of drivers had some flinching moments when they heard that Glenn Bundren was spinning on the racetrack on the front straightaway and probably aiming to slow down for a caution. But nonetheless, we're still under green flag circumstances, coming to 6 laps to go from the Atlanta Motor Speedway. Harrison Chandler still in control of the race lead, but the gap is closing and closing every single time throughout. Luke LaFaro about 1 second faster than the 29 of Harrison Chandler right now.
He needs to be more than 1 second faster if he wants to catch up to him. But what I've noticed also is Chandler in the last 5 to 10 laps has been drafting behind the 81 of Brian Frantian. He's been able to save some fuel in that draft, not go full throttle on the straightaways, and still go just as fast as if he were. So he's having a major help on these straightaways with the 81 of Frantian right in front of him. And we saw there when we were on board, he was coasting across the finish line to in the corners rather, to save some more fuel. He has 10 seconds back with 5 laps to go, so and the gap, the rate at which it's being closed is lessening. So unless he runs out of fuel, I don't believe Lafaro is going to be able to get on his bumper and make the pass on merit. As you see, he's just staying in that gap to make sure that he has the draft to save as much fuel as possible. And as he comes to take 4 laps to go, Lafaro's now under 10 seconds. And how about this, Kenneth? It's not the first time you and I are going to see an M&M's car, if this stays green, an M&M's Toyota Camry win a championship.
Yeah, we saw it at Homestead in real life, NASCAR Cup Series 2019. I think the last Cup Series race that was held with full capacity fans, obviously due to the pandemic. But Luke Lafaro just trying to hold on in the final 4 laps to capture his first ever CRL Cup Series championship. For the other competitors behind, Luke Peters sits 1 lap down in 5th. Eric Heater sits also 1 lap down in 7th. And then the final playoff driver, Matthew Oliveira, promising start. He is 3 laps down in the 11th running position. 13 cars still left out on the track. Benjamin White is probably the last one left, but he is on pit road, so he is not actually running laps on the racetrack. And he's just stuck there pretty much waiting until this one closes. But as for Harrison Chandler, coming around to 2 laps to go. Gap to 8.4 seconds and closing, but it may not close in enough time.
The question still remains, does he have the proper amount of fuel to make it around another 3 miles around this racetrack? It's still a question that we yet have to discover. He had to run about 42 laps in this run in order to make it, and he's been saving the entire time. You see right here, he's actually going to try to go to the inside of Frontian, backs out of it once, and no coasting there. He's not coasting anymore, so probably thinks he has enough fuel, and he's going to try and run this to the finish line and try to capture his first win as we're about to take the white flag. 1 more lap left in the CRL Cup Series season. 1 more time, and Luke Lafaro, who's about to cross the start-finish line now, is 1 lap away from a potential championship. But on the eyes on your race leader, as Harrison Chandler is trying to capture his first win, does he have enough fuel?
He may have enough fuel. No coasting to 3 and 4. Harrison Chandler slowing down at the exit, but he will have enough to get to the finish off turn 4. First time winner, Harrison Chandler comes across the line. He wins it from Atlanta. And Luke Lafaro coming off turn 4. There's Luke Peters a lap around, but Luke Lafaro is your 2021 CRL Cup Series champion.
And a lot of happy people in that chat. I heard a lot of screaming of happiness coming from not only your race winner, but your champion. So a lot of emotions being expressed right now. And you can just imagine how happy he must be. Your race winner getting his first win, your 54 getting his first championship. A couple of firsts here tonight, Kenneth, but you just can't forget the pain that must be going through Eric Heater's mind, having had the season he's had and coming away with a 3rd place finish in points. But we're going to have a dual burnout on the front straightaway. The race winner and your champion celebrating together.
Harrison burning it down, Lafaro burning it down, a race winner, a first-time winner, and a first-time champion. There's Eric Heater giving his congratulations to the 54. We've seen those two tag along for a good amount of this season. And Luke Lafaro gets the best out of it. What has been very exciting moments out of Luke Lafaro from this season. Last lap passes at 1.5 milers, Texas and Charlotte, to grab his wins this season. Consistent finishes all across the board. And when it comes to championship night, he gets it done. And is still celebrating. Almost going to hit the inside wall. A bit of damage though on his Camry nonetheless. But he will celebrate Harrison Chandler with his first win. And how about that? A first-time winner. We haven't seen that in a while. And Harrison Chandler, we haven't seen many starts out of him. But a miraculous effort to save fuel and an alternate strategy to win this race.
He's out of fuel. He just a couple seconds ago, he said out of fuel, so...
Oh, finally he's run out. I think it's good that he's ran out of fuel at this time. He would have had it happen here. And he got some burnouts in as well, so I think it's a very successful... And he saved well more than enough fuel to get to the end. And a phenomenal job. You see him getting pushed around. Going to try to do a Polish victory lap in tandem with Michael Rizzero. And they're all going to go around.
Shades of Alan Kowicki.
Yeah, the great Alan Kowicki got the championship at this racetrack, 1992. And Harrison Chandler going to give some of that props to Alan Kawicki. The respect to the virtual fans. Stayed all the way through these 100 laps. Stayed all the way through the green flag run. Captures his first win. Maybe a bit of miscommunication there with Michael Rosero, but I think they're going to reset and give another push once more as they head to the rest of this racetrack. And as for everybody who finished this race, we'll walk through your full field results at the end of 100 laps. Harrison Chandler saves enough fuel, clutches, and coasts to his first ever CRL Cup Series win, followed by CRL Cup Series champion of 2021, the 54 of Luke Lafaro, coming home 7 seconds behind. Jeffrey Belk in the NASCAR Geek Noah's Machine ends up on an alternate strategy himself and finishes in the top 3 out of everyone here tonight. Jesse Atkinson with a very stealthy run, 1 lap down, but ends up in the top 4. Luke Peters just short of the championship. He ends up in your top 5. Then followed by Jacob McMillan in the 6th place position, 21 machine. Eric Keeter with a pit road mishap from the front of the field to the rear. Had to work his way up and did not have enough time to do so. 1 lap down in the 7th spot. Brian Fratian in the 17 will also be 1 lap down in 8th. And then you'll find the first drivers 2 laps down or more. Keelan Belsha in the 6th machine tonight. Michael Rosero also 2 laps down will complete the top 10.
Looking at the rest of your field, Matthew Oliveira, another championship contender, will finish in 11th position. Brady Floyd in the 12th position. Josh Redden in 13th, followed by Brett Murphy in 14th. Glenn Bundren, who was running up front, but we did see that mishap off turn number 4 on that alternate strategy towards the final run of the race, will finish 15th. Benjamin A. White will finish 16th after getting involved in 2 early incidents. Bryn George, early troubles season, finishing in 17th, and then the tandem of the Aflac cars will finish 18th and 19th with Oliver Golding and Taylor Drake.
So those are your full 19 car field. Everybody who finished this race, some of them exiting early, some of them ending up all the way to the checkered flag. Well, we are going to try to get everybody in here, including your race winner, Harrison Chandler, still getting pushed around by the driver of the 23 in Michael Rosero. But nonetheless, we'll bring in first-time winner Harrison Chandler into victory lane here at the Atlanta Motor Speedway. And Harrison, couple of races in this season, but none quite like this, and an alternate strategy. You save enough fuel. You know, what we were talking about, how long it was going to take for the gap to close, but it ended up not really closing all too much, and you end up taking your first win of this season. Just first of all, walk us through how you feel about this win and how you got to this alternate strategy in the first place to get this victory.
Oh, I'm pumped. I cannot believe it, man. I came in the first lap. After the first lap, I thought it was over. I thought I had just completely choked it. My deepest apologies to everyone involved in that first lap wreck. But that gave me the opportunity to pit under yellow. I just stayed back, riding around for a few laps. Then that second yellow came, and I pit again. I pit to the fullest extent just to make sure that I made it on fuel, because maybe if I had pulled this off, I would have been able to make it. So that's what I did, and I stayed out until I was completely out of fuel, or almost out of fuel on the first long run, and then the second one I just clutched it all the way into the end. I was like 2 laps to the good on the last lap, but I was still clutching just to be safe. Oh my gosh, man. I'm just pumped. I cannot believe it. It's been, I think, over a year since I've won in CRL. I won in my first 2 races, and then I never won again. So this is huge. Atlanta, I've always loved this track. I made sure to do that little that Polish victory lap / Kevin Harvick Dale Sr. Tribute lap at the end. Thanks, Michael, for pushing me, because I was completely out of fuel, so I wouldn't have been able to do it without him. I'm just psyched to be here. I'm 16 years old. I have autism and Tourette syndrome. These guys are so competitive. every week, and it means so much. It means so much to get to win here today. I just thanks to everybody who's believed in me in the past, the present, the future. Friends and family, especially my parents. If it wasn't for them, I wouldn't even be here right now. They're the ones that gave me my rig, my setup, my computer, and everything. So thanks to them. Hope y'all enjoyed the show. I sure enjoyed it, especially when the checkered flag flew. And yeah, I guess that's all I gotta say. This was so much fun. It was awesome.
Well, I mean, everybody, I think, all of us were keeping an eye on whether you were going to have enough fuel to the end. And luckily enough, you lost fuel as you were already done with the celebration. You had the burnouts, you had everything including the race finish. You had it all. But in that call to kind of save all the way to the end, Francisco had called it, said that you were probably the most likely driver to try and save the most and get to the end without pitting one more time like the rest of the field did. Did the nerves start to kick in a little bit more behind the wheel as you realized that more drivers were going to start going down pit road and you were the one clutching and coasting the entire way to the finish?
Oh yeah, I was. As soon as I saw LaFaro was on the lead lap, I was sweating. I was so nervous. I was just hoping and hoping and hoping that I would be able to save enough, but keep enough pace to get to make it. And against all odds, it worked. So, like I said, it's so great. It feels so great to be here, especially now that I didn't even think about this. I didn't make a start all season in CRL, and this was my last. I decided to do this tonight because Zach had told me he wanted me to make a start this season, and I wanted to as well. So, and Atlanta is one of my favorite tracks. So I did it, and it was well worth it. It was so worth it. It was so much fun. It was so great.
Well, it certainly was a lot of fun watching you clutch and coast and make it to the start-finish line to take the win here at Atlanta Motor Speedway. So our congratulations go out to you winning the final race of this CRL Cup Series season. And of course, we look forward to seeing you for more CRL Cup Series races throughout. Hopefully, when the next season kicks off, you're there when we begin. So congratulations once more, and wish you the best of luck moving. And we'll let you celebrate here from Atlanta.
Yes.
Congrats.
Yes, thanks guys so much. It means so much. Thank you. It was so much fun.
That is Harrison Chandler, your winner on 2 laps good of fuel, but on fumes, making the Polish victory lap around, giving that shove from Michael Rosero. But now we'll turn out from a very positive story to another very positive story. The champion at the end of it all, Luke LaFaro, finally gets his first ever CRL Cup Series title. We'll bring him in from what is makeshift victory lane, or championship victory lane as you'd call it, usually in championship ceremony. We'll bring in Luke LaFaro. And Luke, this season, I mean, for a lot of us, even in the booth, a lot of exciting moments. And for you fighting with drivers like Eric Heater coming into this race, you, Luke Peters, Eric Heater, Matthew Oliveira running for a title, then everything sort of kind of fades out to black with the other competitors, and it starts to make the spotlight right on you as the strategy comes through, and you end up walking to your first ever CRL Cup Series championship. I think, simply put, how does it feel to win the title here tonight?
It feels awesome, man. I'm really excited. I can't believe I won the championship. It's incredible, you know. I mean, this whole race luckily fell our way there, and we were able to get the championship. I'm really happy right now, you know. It's awesome.
And certainly, it fell down to long green flag runs. And I know you were battling there in a Ted He battle with Eric Heater, Michael Rosero, Glenn Bundren at one point, where it seemed very close. You guys were getting really racy. It seemed as though there could have been some mistakes, but you guys all keep it together. and then all of a sudden the long run fares out for you. You lead these laps, and the pit strategy starts. Walk us through your mindset there on how you were aiming to nail this, because unlike Harrison Chandler, you didn't save all the way to the end. You pitted with a good amount of laps left, knowing that you were going to make it. So how was that for you, making this call down the pits and just trying to make everything stable and nail it to the championship where you finish here tonight?
Yeah, so my strategy was pretty much, since Harrison pitted the last caution for fuel, so I had an idea he could make it, but obviously he's on the championship 4, so I didn't really have to be too concerned about him. So I was just like, I gotta run as far out as I can and pit, and then come out of and then run for a little while. I was contemplating if I should pit halfway in the last run, but I didn't want to. I pitted a little later because I wasn't sure if there would be a yellow or not, so I kind of pitted with around 20 to go. And unfortunately, I couldn't catch Harrison, but the strategy worked. So,
and it definitely works. So, Francisco, go ahead.
Luke, if I may, congratulations on a spectacular season. I mean, we've documented your successes on those 2 last lap pass wins, both coming at Texas and Charlotte mile and a halves, and this championship coming up at a mile and a half. And if you know me, I have my biases. I know you have your biases as well, bringing the championship to the M&M's Toyota Camry. So congratulations with that as well. I mean, you've done a great job, and you did a great job this race as well with your battles. You kept your composure, and you just ran the perfect race. You didn't make any mistakes, and that's what eliminated the other guys. So that's why you're the champion here today. Today is real, and that's why you're the season 4 champion. No mistakes were made.
yeah, man, I appreciate it. Yeah, I mean, that was the thing, just not making mistakes. Luckily, I was able to make no mistakes and just bring home the championship.
Well, you get this championship, you nail the strategy to the end, and now you get to celebrate. You get to kind of hold on to the virtual trophy, as it will, and you burned it down already. You made that celebration for the virtual fans. But before we let you off, I know there's a lot of people that make it happen for you, everybody that makes it either happen for you on the sim, in real life, or anywhere else in this league. So we'll give you the floor. Who do you got to thank for making this championship, this season, and everything possible for you?
I want to thank my parents for letting me race, and my shadow racing teammates. They helped me with strategy during the race. So yeah.
Well, we certainly give a big thanks for joining us in the booth, and of course, our sincere congratulations on the championship here tonight, the CRL Cup Series. Masterful job all season. You brought us a lot of heart-pumping moments. Remember the last lap passes at Texas and Charlotte. That was a lot of fun. You finally seal it here at Atlanta. So congratulations, and hopefully we look forward to seeing you next season whenever the CRL Cup Series makes its return.
Thank you, man. Heck yeah, I'm so happy right now. Yep. Thank you.
Luke Lafaro coming home second, but it is first in the championship point situation. He will go over the rest of the field. We'll bring in the driver who finishes third at the end of tonight. Not a playoff driver, but a playoff or a driver that put up a very good run to the end. That is third place, Jeffrey Belk in the 55 machine, who's standing trackside with our own Francisco Bacallao.
Well, Jeffrey, it was a silent night for you. All the focus was on championship drivers, and you were able to come away with a third place finish after starting deep in the field. Just tell us how your race went.
Yeah, that was amazing. I got caught up in that first caution and that first incident. Took some damage to the left front. Engine took a little knock, so had to take the fast repair there and started in the back. And we just were kind of on a different fuel strategy after that. We ran it to about 25, came in for fuel and tires, and ran that dry and took on another set. That way we knew we were good to the end, and somehow we were able to keep it up there in the top 3.
And during that first run, at any point, did you consider following Harrison Chandler on his strategy, considering you both did pit on what ended up being the last caution of the race?
No, not really. I had kind of already had a plan in my head, so I stuck to that. Unfortunately, I just couldn't. Harrison, he played it so close. He just barely had enough fuel, and I didn't think he was going to make it to the end myself, honestly.
You also were able to make up a lot of passes today. You passed well over 10 cars to get over to the top of the podium positions. You also mentioned you were involved in that lap 1 incident. 2 of our top, actually, I think everybody who finished in the top 3 today was involved in that lap 1 caution. So it's not about how you start; it's about how you finish, right?
Oh, definitely. If you can keep the tires fresh enough and just keep everything working fine, you have a shot at the end. Especially if it's like this race with no cautions, everyone's going to have to pit multiple times, and as you saw, just people going laps down, just trying to get tires and fuel on it, and just running it too long.
And we know also that there's several people that help you put together this efforts, and we know that they deserve a shout out as to what they did to help you. So let's I'll give you the stage, and you can list off everybody who's helped you get to this position.
Well, normally it would be the NASCAR Geek, Equipment Geek, Sports Star, Shock, Week Designs, but this week, because it's on the car, it's Noah's Meme Machine. So thanks to Noah.
All right, it was fun having you up here, Jeffrey. Congratulations on the podium finish, and we'll hopefully see you again next season.
All right, thank you very much. Have a good one.
As Jeffrey Belk, driver of the 55 Noah's Meme Machine, ends up in the 3rd spot. I guess we kind of had that not necessarily known, but I saw Forkloak Media with an NMM in the chat, so that's exactly what it means nonetheless. But we'll bring in the driver who comes up very short on the championship end. We'll cover all the championship drivers before we close out here for the broadcast. It'll be Luke Peters, driver of the 16 machine, pointed his way in without a win this season, ends up 7th at the start or actually ends up 5th at the start finish line, started in 7th and finishes 2nd in the championship hunt. We're bringing Luke Peters, and Luke, this season overall, I mean, compared to what we saw with Eric Keeter and Luke LaFaro, you did not get a win, but it was about the resiliency, about the consistency, and about just staying tough to the final race. You point your way into the championship for. Just walk us through what this night was, and especially how things resulted for you at the end of the night.
So, obviously, the lap one wrecked. I was got in it, and I decided I didn't have that much damage, so I decided to just repair it and not take a fast repair. That kind of hurt me because I had some aero damage, but I definitely thought that there would be more caution at the end. But that didn't happen. Second caution was, though, I was thinking about maybe pick. I didn't. I probably should have. Maybe I would have had a shot at the championship. But then my first green flag pit stop, I tried to undercut and overshot my pit box, so that hurt me a lot. But then just kind of nothing really happened the rest of the race. But I'll take second.
Well, it is second in the championship nonetheless, and not obviously the result you wanted or any of the championship four really wanted. But, for this season, for the way this season has gone for you and how the races have gone so far, what do you think was the takeaways from this championship run, whether it be from the regular season, in the playoffs, or in this championship race specifically? What kind of takeaways do you bring with yourself after this completion of the CRL Cup Series season?
I'll definitely take second. I'm really happy that I got it. I don't really think I deserved it. I didn't win any races earlier. I was able to put my way in, though, so yeah.
Well, certainly a prominent effort nonetheless. Luke, I know you made your way to the championship four. You deserve the spotlight in your own right, so we'll give you the floor. Who are the people you need to thank for making this possible and this entire season run for you?
My parents for letting me race, all my teammates, helping me with strategy throughout this whole season and stuff. You guys for putting on the broadcast, and all the admins for putting up the races.
Well, Luke, we certainly thank you for joining us in the booth for the final time this season, and congratulations on your advancement to the championship four. Not the championship here tonight, but a solid effort nonetheless. So we wish you the best of luck going forward, and of course, hopefully we see you next season when the CRL Cup Series kicks off once again. But for now, congratulations on your feat from Atlanta Motor Speedway. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
As Luke Peters, driver of the 16, short of the championship, but a solid effort for a driver pointing his way in, kept it all the way to the very end and finished in the top 5. We'll bring in the next championship driver who also falls short, and that is arguably the most dominant driver all season long, Eric Heater in the 10 machine. Is trackside with Francisco Bacallao, just short of the championship as well. Oh, I believe we may have not have Francisco. At least he's gonna come back. However, Eric Heater, well, we brought you in, and obviously this night did not go the way you anticipated. A dominant season coming to an end like this. The way that first segment went, you were fighting for the lead with Luke LaFaro, Michael Rosero, Glenn Bundren, you have it, all those drivers there, and then comes that pit road strategy where a mishap happens and you end up pitting once again. Walk us through what happened there, and of course, the result that you feel happened tonight?
Yeah, I mean, that pit stop there was just kind of a misunderstanding by me. The guys were all talking about fuel in there, and one of them mentioned that we had about like 10 laps to go. So I wasn't really, concerned about it. And so I stayed out. I saw Luke pitting. I thought he was actually undercutting, but he was actually basically almost out of fuel. And so Michael, I guess he was just following me. I don't know if he heard the same thing or if he was just following me, but it went the same way. He had a little bit less fuel than me. We both ran out. I think he ended up having to tow. Thankfully, I made it to pit road, but I don't really know what I was doing. I don't know what I was thinking. I don't know if I was trying to salvage it or if I just wasn't paying attention, but I ended up getting a speeding penalty. And from there, it was just not much I could do to gain that much. Pretty much of my own doing, but really, that's just my fault. And I just want to say that Harrison and Luke did such a great job to come back from that first lap wreck to get both the win and the championship. So big congrats to them. Proud of them as a teammate. Definitely disappointed, but if there's anyone who was going to win it, definitely one of my teammates would have been favorable, I suppose.
Well, certainly a dominating season nonetheless, and even with the way this championship result ended up tonight, there's a lot of positive notes to take away from this season. Of course, all the race wins, all the laps led, all the moments where you were in the top 3, top 5, all the calls you made. So for this season in its entirety, what do you think can be taken away most about this entire season as an overhaul for next season if you attend, and obviously moving forward with the CRL Cup Series, and how this season went for you?
I feel like definitely a positive thing to take away is I had so much pace pretty much all season long, and I was able to, put on good moves on the racetrack and just race people well and, get a lot of race wins. But I think one thing that I definitely need to learn from this season is that I definitely need to work on my pit stops. I think it was just so many races where I could have had even more wins than what I had already, or at least just, salvage the runs, but just on pit road, screwing up and basically killing my races like that, definitely something that you can't do. So for sure I need to work on that, I'd say.
Well, nonetheless, a solid season put together and a solid CRL Cup Series season overall with the most wins this season and arguably most top 5s, most top 10s. So before we let you go from Atlanta, we'll give you the floor. Is there anybody you'd just like to thank, any teams, sponsors, or anybody else that makes it happen for you in the sim and in this league specifically this entire season?
Yeah, for sure. Everyone at Shadow Racing and Supermax being behind us all season. A lot of support there. There was, a lot of help with the pit stops all season long, so I have to really appreciate that. And a huge shout out to Harrison and Luke there. They did a massive job to get that done there.
Well, we certainly appreciate the time here, Eric, and of course, congratulations on your move to the Championship 4, and of course, completing this entire season in probably the most dominant way possible. So, congratulations from all of us here at the KBueno Racing Network, and hopefully we end up seeing you for next season, and we wish you the best of luck. Thank you so much, Eric.
Thank you. See you.
As Eric Heater coming across the line in the 7th spot, short of the championship, but a very solid season to at least recap as you see him working around the racetrack. We'll get to our final interview of the evening. That will be with the 57 of Matthew Oliveira. He comes across the line 11th, but nonetheless, he is also another championship driver that we saw come up just short. We'll bring him into the broadcast with our final interview of the evening. And Matthew, of course, so welcome to the booth. And for a race that come down to the championship, not many series go to Atlanta to come off a championship, and for you, started in second, started on the outside, kind of fell back when that first wreck happened, but you stayed consistent up front, and then things kind of sort of change up. A lot of the field gets strung out. Pitch strategy comes into the mix. Just walk us through how your night went and how you feel after today's result.
Night went terribly, to put it the least. I mean, like you said, it started off pretty well. Got second somehow. stayed up there for the most part. But once the cautions stopped coming in and went on the long run, I just could not keep up whatsoever. I don't know what it was, whether it was tires, whether it was just the one ding I had against the wall, but I just could not stay with them. Fell back a lot, and then green flag pit stop cycle through, and I just completely missed pit road. Got a speeding penalty, should have gotten a missed pit entrance, somehow didn't get that. And never got a chance to get back up there because there was no caution throughout the race. So just not a whole lot I could do there. The only thing I had in control was that speeding penalty, but even that probably would have been out of contention either way. I just didn't have pace to keep up with them, especially with no yells. So is what it is, you know.
Well, nonetheless, I know mentioned with a couple of the championship drivers that all four of you put on very solid seasons, and no matter whether you guys had wins or not, I talked about it with Luke Peters, and I'll say the same with you, that the fact that pointing your way in, getting into the championship four is already a grueling effort in itself, just walking through the playoffs and having to keep yourself alive, and then going to this final race where everything's on the line, and then it all unfolds at the same time, but still to walk away a fantastic season in the CRL Cup Series. So for you specifically, is there anything you can kind of take away from what this season has been like for you and how you think you're going to fare moving forward if you return to CRL Cup Series competition next season, and what you think you can kind of grab from this season that you can take to the next season in order to try and chase a championship there as well?
Honestly, mostly from going forward from this season to the next season. Mostly just understanding how to race everyone and how everyone tends to race you. I think that's the biggest thing. I don't know if there's a whole lot more I could do as far as the tracks we go to. I don't particularly find myself very talented, I'll be honest. I always find myself shocked at how other drivers race. So knowing that, and the fact that I somehow made it to the Final Four, I'd consider myself very lucky, I'll be honest. It was a good season. Got a few top fives here and there, had a few good runs, especially Charlotte as well. That was, I think, my favorite race or best race. But yeah, just avoided most misfortune when everyone else tended to found it and got my way in there. Just couldn't quite make it at the end. So.
Well, very great season nonetheless for you, Matthew. But before we let you go from Atlanta, is there anybody else you just like to thank? Any people you want to give the shout outs and love to for putting this season together or putting your run on the sim together or anything else? Who do you have to thank for everything in general, I guess, as I should say?
I'll give a shout out to Harrison. Man, he talked about it in the waiting room. He had a little bit of an embarrassing moment at the start of the race, but man, to come back from that, man, to win the race, unbelievable. Played the strategy just perfectly, and it's been a while for him. I'm happy he got that one, man. He deserved it.
Well, Matthew, a solid thanks for everything you brought into this CRL Cup Series. It was a lot of fun watching you rip around the track each and every race this season. And, of course, hopefully we hope to see you again in the CRL Cup Series competing for a title once again. But for now, congratulations on your advancement to the Championship 4. And, of course, thank you so much for joining us in the booth. And we wish you the best of luck moving forward.
Thank you, man. Thanks for having me.
That is Matthew Oliveira, final playoff driver, coming home, the last out of all of them. But nonetheless, finishes all the way at the end, and that pretty much closes off everything that we've seen here from the Atlanta Motor Speedway. And Francisco, to think of how this season unfolded, I mean, there were so many moments we could cap off as ones that we were kind of on our seat, actually not even on our seat, standing up at the edge of our seat waiting for it to happen. I can think of Michigan when Eric Heater kind of fought off Ben McDonald and Brett Murphy to win, going from Luke Lafaro's 2 last lap passes to win at Texas and at Charlotte. And then coming to Atlanta, it all unfolds with the long green flag strategy, where it was either making mistakes, kind of detrimented some others, but also benefited some others with the way the strategy went. And this season was just a sight to behold in its entirety, with Luke Lafaro ending up as champion.
Luke Lafaro coming away with the championship was probably not the most likely situation I thought about this race going into the night, but props to him and his team for just not making mistakes. That's really what it came down to. We saw every other one make a mistake at some point in this race, and he was involved in that lap 1 incident. Not of his fault, though. He was just in the wrong place at the wrong time, but he made no mistakes in his recovery, and that's ultimately what got him into this position to be your Season 4 champion. And if you look back to earlier parts in the season, when he got that win at Texas on that last lap pass on Luke Peters, he also made the last lap pass on Luke Peters. Actually, not at Texas, but he made the last lap pass on Luke Peters at Charlotte. So I mean, he's been good at the mile and a half this season, and I've seen it firsthand, having raced with these guys a couple of times throughout the season in these playoffs. So I know what they're racing after, and I know from experience just how good they're able to perform behind the wheel. And for them to be able to do what they're doing, and it's definitely takes a lot of skill to avoid making the mistakes that they make. And I mean, it's worked out in their favor. And here we are with Luke Lafaro, the Season 4 champion. And as we go into Season 5 next season, he's going to try to look to repeat. And I think it'll be a very competitive season.
Definitely will be one of the most competitive, if not the most competitive season in CRL Cup Series history. But a fantastic season here nonetheless, right here on the KBueno Racing Network. Upcoming for us, well, we're still left to behold. Oscar Truck Series Championship was concluded last night, and CRL Cup Series has been concluded as well here tonight on Friday. So we'll try to keep you updated as to where the future of KBueno Racing Network is going. By the way, we don't have any leagues currently planned. We do have one event planned, though, on Saturday, May 15th. It'll be the Warwick Bristol Nationals, taking the Dirt Legends cars to the Bristol Dirt Speedway. So we'll be kicking it off there, having a little bit of fun there. That coverage will begin at about 6:30 p.m. Eastern here on the KBueno Racing Network. And that will pretty much be it for upcoming events for here on the KBueno Racing Network. Again, we'll update you on our Twitter, on our Instagram pages, wherever you can find the KBueno Racing Network, KBRN Network on Twitter, KBueno Racing Network on Instagram for more updates. But that will do it for our coverage of the CRL Cup Series final race of the season, our championship event here from the Atlanta Motor Speedway. A big thanks to everybody at the administration team for making this season possible. For guys like Brady Floyd, Bryn George, Zachary Thorne, Talon Drake, everybody that makes this possible. All the drivers for participating in each and every race. All of our winners, and of course, our winner here tonight, Harrison Chandler, and our champion of the CRL Cup Series this season, Luke Lafaro in the 54, taking away the championship glory. So for all of us at the KBueno Racing Network, for Charlie Baier and for my colleague in the booth, Francisco Bacallao, my name is Kenneth Bueno, saying so long from Hotlanta. We'll see you hopefully next season or wherever we may end up here in the KBueno Racing Network. Good night, and thank you.